right, so this video is going to cover everything Buildxact and Xero related and how they chat to each other. We are first of all going to go through an overview of the different ways that the data can flow between them to try and get an idea before we dive into the detail. We're going to do the connection and look at the authentication step if you haven't got that on already. Then we're going to split into two parts. We're going to look at everything syncing from Buildxact into your Xero accounting. And then secondly, we'll look at everything syncing from Xero into your Buildxact. There's pros and cons of both of those, and we're going to address some of those in the overview to try and give a really clear picture of what we're talking about. So I'm going to bring this up. If you've ever done a training session with me in the past, you've probably seen me scribble on this. I find this by far to be the easiest way to talk through all the different options and just try and simplify what's going on. So in the three parts here, I've got obviously Buildxact, your accounting, so Xero in this case, and the bank. And there's this kind of dashed line between accounting and the bank because Xero works really nicely with your bank, and we leverage some of that function in what we need to do from a Buildxact perspective. And naturally, there's going to be the client down here because they're going to come into the equation when we talk about invoicing. All right, so first up, when we're syncing from Buildxact to Xero, there's two main things we can sync, either expenses or purchases and the customer invoice. So we're going to start on the first one here. In Buildxact speak, it'll be a purchase order, and we're looking for the status of that to be received or part received. If it's either of those, we pick it up and we get it ready to sync to Xero. Now, the reason this line is in two bits is there's a step in between, or kind of stopping it from going straight across to Xero, and that's this sync button. So when we're, I suppose the reason this exists at all is to buy you time to fix mistakes before they enter Xero. The examples we get, there's a whole range of them, but a good one is if you put a purchase through and you put an extra zero on it, up until that syncs to Xero, it's just a Buildxact problem and you can fix it pretty easily. Once it gets into Xero, you've just got two places to fix it after that. And it just becomes a slight bit more work. So we try and hold back stuff as long as possible to make sure that it's all clean before it goes into Xero. When you hit sync, and an extra point here, as far as like how often do you need to sync, it gets asked quite a lot. I definitely don't think you need to be syncing 50 times a day. Like every purchase, you definitely don't need to hit it that often. Commonly, people do it at the end of the day, or they do it every 2 days. If you've got an external bookkeeper, then it would be pretty important to have it synced before they come on for their, if they're working a day or two a week. So syncing before that happens would also be important. Once you do hit sync, across it goes. It lands as a bill in Xero, and you can from there use the Xero bill pay function to actually get it paid. And Xero has a few different options for that. Often, well, what I'll see more likely is the bill has been paid via a transfer or a credit card, and you are then matching it up via this reconciling bank matching process that Xero has. And the whole point of that is so we can go cross it off the list. It's taken care of. That bill is being paid. On the other side of what we send to Xero, looking at customer invoices, what will happen is the invoice gets sent to the client, which will mark it as invoiced automatically. You can mark it as invoiced yourself, but that's the status we're looking for. We're looking for it to be invoiced and sent to the customer before we then start sending it across. And the logic here is that once the client has it, they could foreseeably pay it, as soon as they receive it, which they may or may not. Xero should know about it by the time the client knows about it, is the rationale here. So when the client does actually pay via bank transfer or check or whatever they want to do, Xero can use its reconciling ability to then match that payment with the invoice that's come from Buildxact, and it comes in as a sale. It's then ticked off, and we know, yep, that's paid. That's taken care of. The only bonus point here I should add is If you prefer, for any number of reasons, to issue the client invoices from your Xero account, you can mark it as invoiced, force it to sync across, and then issue it to the client. That is entirely possible. The most notable reason that we get people wanting to do this, and it's not all that common, I should add, is that Xero has online payment options for clients. And if you use that, then syncing to Xero first may be a better option. I've heard pros and cons for both processes, honestly, and the most notable one against using the online payment is that you get charged an amount or a fee for using that when it's transacting. Awesome, so that's everything Buildxact into Xero, and let's choose a different color. Not for that one. Let's choose a different color for here, and we'll talk about now what happens when we're pulling stuff back from Xero into your Buildxact. So this relates only to purchases and expenses, or put another way, to money that you're spending. And what happens is we at Buildxact search Xero for all new bills that haven't yet been actioned or taken care of. And we grab them and we show them to you in Buildxact, and we ask you to say, which job does this go against? Which cost category does it go against? There's pros and cons for both directions, sending from Buildxact to Xero or vice versa. The most notable one for people who will want to, or who will lean towards syncing from Xero to Buildxact, is where they've been using Xero for quite a while and there's an established process and they don't want to mess with that. There may even be a process whereby you've got like a receipt scanning app that is feeding stuff into Xero for you. And if that's the case, that's another reason to keep the direction of data from Xero into Buildxact. Awesome. Now that we've covered all of that, let's go and do the connection. So I'm going to go to this account here, and I need specifically the Buildxact screen for this. I'm going to go integrations and connect, and let's do this. So it might ask you to log in. I'm already logged into Xero, so I didn't have to. It just wants an okay that it's allowed to share data between Xero and Buildxact. And specifically, we're looking at contacts, transactions, attachments, and some settings around tax. So we'll go allow access. That then has a quick think about it and pops up, wait for it, that message. So what this message is saying is, if you don't already have two-step login enabled for Buildxact, then you need to do it because this is a requirement put on us when we connect to Xero. And I'll click OK. You'll know pretty quick if it's you, because if it is you, it'll prompt you to log out to set up that flow. And if it's not you, it'll do what it did for me and take you straight into this settings screen. So I'm going to pause for a sec, take you through this two-step login process, explain what it is really quick. And there is a whole article called How Do I Use Two-Step Verification, which will take you through it in more detail, and it has its own video as well. So simply put, what we're trying to achieve, or what we have to do here, is when you log into Buildxact, there needs to be a second step that authorizes you beyond just your password or even the code that we send you, depending on how we log in. We're logging you in, but it'll log you. The process will log you out here. It will ask you to scan this code. And COVID's done a bit of a number on us with this one because everyone sees these and wants to scan it with their camera on their phone. We need it scanned with an authenticator app. Personally, I use the Google Authenticator app because I use it for Buildxact plus the bank plus a whole horde of other stuff. So I recommend that one to pretty much everybody. So you'll open the Authenticator app of your choosing, scan that. It will pop up with this in Buildxact saying, hey, we've made the connection. Here's your recovery code if you ever need to fix something. So most notable example here is changing phones. You may need this if it doesn't automatically switch the Authenticator app from phone to phone. If you should definitely log this down. Personally, I put this into my email and just send it to myself with the subject of Xero or Buildxact login code, or whatever the app is I'm doing it for. If it really blows up when you change phones, reach out to us because we can assist as well, and support is where you would talk to for that. Going on down, it'll say, great, you're done. It'll send you back again to log in, email and password, or email and Buildxact email code, whatever you're doing. Then there's the extra step of, hey, go to that Authenticator app, grab the code, type it in. And my bonus point here, I very much recommend you click Remember Me for 30 days. If you're on your own computer, not a shared one, this just minimizes the number of times you have to do this code. Awesome. So back to here, once you log back in, you'll go integrations and settings. And like I said before, if you didn't need to do authentication, it would already be here. So let's talk about what this screen is trying to get you to do. From the top down, it's looking at what exactly are we sending to Xero? So 3 options. Are we sending the purchase orders? And I'm going to be flipping screens a lot. Sending the purchase orders, which was this green flow up here. Second one is, hey, if you are going to send the purchase orders, do you want us to send the attachments to Xero as well? I very, very much recommend this because even if you're doing your own Xero account, there'll be times where you want to compare the Xero record against the actual invoice, and we can send that to Xero for, to make that easier. Especially if you've got a third party like a bookkeeper or an accountant doing your Xero, that's even better for them because they can compare it without having to bug you. And then the last one, do you want to send the invoices, the customer's invoices to Xero? And that is this purple flow from invoice to sale. Next here, we've got, hey, how far back do you want to look for stuff to sync? And by default, it'll be today's date. There's arguments for backdating it in the case that you've got a whole bunch of existing stuff in Buildxact that you want to play catch up with in Xero and just send it all at once. There's an argument to forward date it, which is if you want to have like a clean cutover date between the 2 processes, you can set it into the future and say, this tells Buildxact, hey, don't send anything to Xero up until this date. Like anything created before here, we don't want to think about. And this date would then allow you to do your existing process up until, in my case, September 1. And then I'd switch over to putting stuff into Buildxact first. Going on down, this section is all to do with expenses or purchase orders in Buildxact's world. These top 2 are wanting to know, when we send these into Xero, where exactly are they going? And it's talking specifically about, if I use this bill, it's talking specifically about the account box in Xero and how we match to that. So I've actually cheated a little bit. I went into my Xero account and went chart of accounts and added 2 more. I suggest that people do that. I just think it's nice to have a separate account for the stuff that Buildxact's putting in. And I then put in the suppliers one. So to translate here, if the purchase order has a contact on it from this contacts area, and that contact is grouped under the suppliers group, then we send it to the suppliers one in my Xero account. And naturally, you can switch these up if you like. We also do the same thing for contractors. So if it's a contractor on the purchase order, they're under the contractors group in here, in your contacts. We send them to this account in Xero. That's the basic way of doing it. I will point out, and I won't go through it in a whole bunch of detail, that if you need it more detailed than that, you can set it up so that each individual contact knows which account it's wired to. And that's more appropriate for people who have their accounts in Xero already established, and they might have an electrical one and a plumbing one, etc. In that way, you can go and match each contact to the right Xero account. But I recommend this one for starting out. I think it's a lot simpler. Going on down, this is all to do with tax. And if you look at this and you go, that's pretty much the same as that, you are correct. The first lot of taxes and the second lot of taxes do different things, but they look the same. This is here for older jobs in Buildxact. And this is just to cover ourselves where we have a long-time Buildxact user connecting to Xero. And this is for the new way we handle tax and for newer jobs. Just to give you the quick version here, what we're saying to Xero is, hey Xero, this is the default if there is a tax on it. Your code for this is GST on expenses. And this is what you do if there's no tax. Your code for this is GST free. So it's just filling out a different box, which is this tax rate box here. and we're telling Xero what to do in each case. Perfect. Going on down into income, we do pretty much the same thing for the customers' invoices. We say, which account are we sending it to? My default for Xero is sales. And we then have a bit of a sidestep around when we send it, what status should we send it in? Now, quick version here is if I go to bills to pay, in my example, you'll see I've got a draft awaiting approval and awaiting payment. We can send to any of those statuses or any one of those groups. And it's this box here that controls it. There's a whole separate part within our Buildxact and Xero help article, right down almost the very bottom, which talks about which category is which and which one you should select so it lands in the one you want. From a getting started perspective, I just recommend Draft because it's the simplest and it gets you into good habits of reviewing things in Xero. The other ones are probably better geared to people who have used this for longer. Awesome. Moving on down, we do the exact same tax setup for income. So again, hey Xero, if there's tax from a Buildxact item that we're sending in related to a customer's invoice, your code is GST on income. And if there's no tax, you call that whatever you call it, GST free income. Again, we've got the old job and the new job section, and again, they should marry up and be exactly the same as each other. Lucky last, for sending stuff to Xero, we've got the job tracking category. And I've gone and cheated again and set this up already. So I went into accounting and advanced and played with the tracking categories here. The long and short of it is, if I go back a few screens, when you have a bill, you can have extra categories that help track and group for the sake of reporting mainly. So I set up two. I set up one called job and one called area. The area one isn't actually necessary if you're just syncing into Xero, but it comes into play later. And what we're really doing is going, hey, when we send this information to you, we're going to send you an extra piece, which is the tracking category. And we go and just put in the Buildxact job numbers so that each bill and each sale in Xero knows which Buildxact job it relates to, and it helps a lot for reporting. So I'm going to say job and save. And that is the setup part. And you'll see it's got nothing to sync. If I go, and it's because it's looking into the future. If I go and backdate this, it's now got 6 things to sync. And quick extra few points, largely around what items are wanting to sync and why. And if I go into my job here and to purchase orders, I've got 3 purchases here because I've got this plaster one as one, and then there was 2 separate, if I click into it, you'll see it better. There was 2 separate expenses I put against the windows for a deposit and the balance. So that counts up to 3 purchases that are wanting to send. I know they haven't sent because there would be a banner at the top and there would be a little icon here and also icons next to the order number. A bonus point here is, especially for people who are coming to Buildxact, or they're managing the changeover and they want certain stuff not to sync, you can go into each of these and actually tell us, exclude it from the sync. And once it has synced, that button will be replaced with a resend option in the case that you need to, whatever reason, send it to Xero again. Same exact thing is true of the outgoing customer invoices. There's an exclude from sync, and there'll later be an option to resync. All right, so let's hit this sync button. And it goes, hey, we're doing it. It might take a few minutes. Typically, it's a lot less than 5 minutes. It's like 30 seconds. And I'm actually just going to toggle screens to get it to refresh a little quicker. At least it feels quicker. Who knows if it's actually speeding it up. But it's going to do its thing. And I'm going to go across to my Xero dashboard just in preparation for showing you what it lands or what it looks like when it lands. Awesome. So it's finished syncing. I'll just refresh that again. Last sync was successful. one point I had on my list was there's a log of everything we send to Xero. This is right here. And this is super useful if you ever have a scenario of like, hey, I don't know why this isn't showing up in Xero. And you might come in here and realize, oh, actually, no, I synced it like weeks ago and then deleted it. Every time we send it, we log it. This is just helpful if we ever need to go through into the weeds. And then in Xero, first of all, the bills, they show up like any other bill. So I'll click here and you can see what it's done. It's filled out pretty much everything. It's brought through the contact. So as an extra point here, which I didn't cover earlier, we check the contacts in Xero. So if you have a customer that doesn't yet exist in your Xero, you don't really need to add them. We're going to do it for you. And same thing for a supplier. In my case, it will add the supplier into Xero if they don't already exist. It's brought through the descriptions, the quantities, the prices, the tax, and pretty much everything that I would have put in myself. In addition, it'll have this little attachment where if it's synced it across, and this one didn't have one, if it did sync it across, it'll be here for you to view. Same exact thing is true for the client's invoices. So let's go to draft invoices and click on one of those. And it will look, oops, that's the wrong thing I clicked on. Let's get out of there. There it is. Oh, it was a pop-up telling me to set something up. So I click into it. Now this one's an interesting one because it's got a customer's stage claim or invoice on it, but it's also got two variations. So this was invoice number 30. If I go back to Buildxact and go into the job, or I could search orders and invoices and find it that way, much of a muchness. If I go to number 30, which was that guy, you'll see it's got those extra lines because I had variations attached to that bill. So extra point is we separate them out here just for keeping it clean. Awesome. Now that is covering pretty much everything on pushing things into Xero. There will naturally be a few things that may come up on your accounting connection journey that you need to ask us about, and that's completely fine. Reach out and let us know. We can help. But let's now tackle the syncing from Xero into Buildxact. And I'm going to return to this just to refresh your memory. We're talking solely about this orange arrow here, pulling bills back into Buildxact, and it has no bearing over customer invoices. We don't pull that backwards. So if I go integrations and settings, and I'm going to say don't sync the purchases in because I'm going to use the Xero to Buildxact for this. Let's go through the settings here. Now, the first box, it's wanting to know from which account code or chart of account should we be looking to pull stuff in. I recommend that when you do this for the start, you just leave it blank because if it's blank, it just checks everything in Xero. And if you get to the point where you're going, wow, there's a lot of unnecessary stuff coming across, you can then go and be more specific and tell us, hey, look, only look at expenses or only look at materials or whatever you want. Now, tracking categories. This was, I've briefly touched on because I mentioned to you earlier that in Xero, I went advanced and set up those tracking categories. And the reason that we've got two boxes here is when we're pulling back from Xero, we can work off multiple tracking categories. So the first one is saying, in Xero, which category did you use to track the job, if any? And if you don't have it now, that's okay, but I personally recommend everyone sets up tracking categories. I think they're fantastic. So I'm saying the equivalent of a Buildxact job is the category in my the tracking category here called jobs. And the equivalent of the actuals cost category, I've got one called area. And again, if you don't have it, you can set it up. I really do recommend this. And especially I recommend this last option, which is import all the attachments when I bring it in. And that helps you match it in the exact same way as if you were sending them to Xero. It's just giving us extra context on the Buildxact side of what you're doing. So let's go save. Let's go into jobs, and all the imported bills show up under the jobs and imported bills section. It actually works very similar to the Buildxact timesheets or deputy timesheets if you're using that. So import bills, it will have a think, and it's going to go, hey, there's no bills to display. That's because when we send stuff across, we have a mechanism in place so stuff doesn't get sent back. So I'm very, very quickly going to go and create just an example bill. And I'm going to go new bill. And I'm just going to say it's from Dan C. Due date, etc. Fill it out. So let's just say it's timber. One lot of $5,000 account. So I'm going to say materials, suppliers. That's what I called it. It already knows the tax rate because it's linked to the account, and I could mess with it if I want. I'm also going to go fill this out and say that this relates to J1115. In reality, this is the Buildxact code. In reality, you're more likely going to have stuff called like, Tom's job or the Smith Street job. Whatever you want, that's fine. We can match it back. And then the area I've got as materials. So I'm actually going to change this to Dan's job and materials just so it looks more realistic. And approve. I didn't put an attachment into that one, but if I had, the attachment would pull back. Let's go back here, refresh that. And there it is. So depending on how many jobs you're running and how big the jobs are, one quick thing I should cover is the search is fantastic. That helps you kind of weed through them a lot quicker. And also to note, we only show the last, I believe it's 30 days of bills. So just to that point, this is to stop us pulling way too much data from Xero at once. So what this means is when you put a bill into Xero, you've got really 30 days to action it. If it was me, I probably wouldn't wait that long. I'd do it as quick as possible. So having a good routine to come in here, like twice a week or weekly or whatever suits you, just to action all of these, this will keep it flowing really nicely. Now it wants to know what job and what category and what item. And you'll notice only actually the job is mandatory. So if I get out of there, if you were to leave those two blank, it would literally just dump it in as a brand new thing to the job. It would have its own category. It's messy. I don't really like doing it this way. So I suggest that you at a minimum use the category. And if you're having a hard time working out where it goes, you can go down and there'll be an attachment if it's available. There'll also be notes. So it's pulling in the description lines from Xero. This is a bonus point as well, because if I had a bill that had multiple lines on it, it would show them all here. And it is possible to assign, to get one bill from Xero and assign it to different projects, or one project but different categories and different lines. So you can definitely dice it up however you kind of want to do that. So let's go, that's the job, that's the category, and I don't really have a good match in this example, so I'm going to say floor covering. And when I'm matching it, I'm choosing, if I want to match it to an exact line. So I'm going to put it just to that for argument's sake. If you didn't choose the item, it would dump a new item in, but it would be in the category as opposed to just dumping it into the whole job. There is an option to link it with an existing order if you've been sending a lot of purchase orders, which I won't cover in a whole bunch of detail because it's probably not used as much as the import process is just on its own. Instead, I'm going to go create order, and this is going to pull in the contact. If for whatever reason it doesn't match the contact straight up, it is likely that the contact does not exist and you may need to go through the steps of creating it. But in this case, it knows. When I'm doing purchases, use this description a lot. So depending on how motivated I'm feeling, I might just copy and paste it from here, or I might say, look, it's flooring or whatever it was, and off we go. Save and close, that confirms it all in, and that will disappear. And if I go to the job, which one was that? The Dan's Kitchen. I will see in the purchase orders, it now exists. And all of these actually have little icons because they've been synced either from or to Buildxact. The flooring one is the one in question. and I put that against flooring material. And it is now showing up here, and I could click in and see the information that has been pulled through. Now, as mentioned at the start, that's a lot of information. So if you are wanting to just connect your Buildxact and your Xero even to a test job in both accounts and play with it, you're absolutely going to learn a whole bunch just messing around with it. If you do get stuck on things, absolutely reach out via the need help option or to the trainer if you've been in touch with them. Long story short, especially for this part, not that it's any more important than any others, but we're absolutely here to help. We don't want to have a situation where you're connected and stuff's going to the wrong places and you're stressing out. We can avoid that scenario. Awesome. Let us know if you have questions. Hope that makes sense. Have a great rest of your day.